Hello everybody. We got some new patch notes to go over. So let's take a look. Patch 4.5.0. The second variety patch that we've seen. So we're going to get some new cards here. Continuing the narrative from Gloria and Navori and setting the stage for the next expansion. So we should be able to get some hints here as to what we can expect in the next expansion, next champions we might see. Gameplay system updates. For many of you, it's been a few months since you put down your rotated cards. Pull them out. First, Eternal Focused Balance patch. We want to set the bar for what the power level wants to expect the format to be. Some reverts to some old favorites. These are the first steps into making Eternal the format we have in mind. A place for cards to be as powerful as they can, for deck builders to have the world at their fingertips. Okay, so high power level for Eternal is what they're going for. Ultimately, their goal is to make Eternal its own distinct and fun way to play. So, loaded dice. Used to be for the rest of the round when you damage the enemy nexus, nab 1. It is now next round when you damage the enemy nexus, nab 1. Even though they're loaded dice, they often seem to roll snake eyes. This change should allow players to feel more in control of their fate and make it more likely they end up with a loaded hand. Nice, okay. So that is, you get no more immediate benefit. It's not about like it's not about combo the turn you play it. Now you're able to play loaded dice to set up what you're going to do next turn, which is probably going to be better. You play that on a defensive turn, and then you're able to kind of go all out on the turn that you have the attack token. Uh, it's a nice change. It's hard to say that it's a direct buff, but it's definitely going to give you more mana to work with when trying to get a bunch of nab. Cosmic Inspiration. It now no longer requires celestial cards, it just grants allies the buff. Celestial cards are awesome and powerful, but they ask you too many offerings to the celestial gods. It should now be more satisfying to shape the stars and see what they may hold, as all the cards should be playable. Yeah, Cosmic Inspiration was something that you couldn't get as your first one. It required you to go all in, but at the same time, oh, they did it for Cosmic Rays and Supernova as well. At the same time, all of the high-end stuff was kind of like at least the units got more powerful the more celestial cards you had played. But at the same time, yeah, so increasing celestial, making it so that you had to play celestial cards to get more benefit, I think was fine. These requiring you to behold wasn't just have played celestial cards before. They were like either keep it in your hand or keep it alive on the field, which is a little bit harder. Crimson Aristocrat. Play 1, deal 1 for plus. Okay, it gives less attack. Play, deal 1 to an ally and grant it +1, but overwhelm. Scar's archetype has always been somewhat weak. This changes to allow this card to be a more generic tool for Noxus. Yeah, because actually getting overwhelm on some of those Scars units is a pretty big deal. A lot more than just purely getting attack. This was definitely the Crimson that you saw the least, and it's granting overwhelm. Very nice. Help picks can give a barrier, so we decided it would be fun if picks had one too. Now you'll be a bit more from your friendly supporter. That's cool. Pix actually just straight up has barrier now, so can survive that first attack. That's amazing for Pix. It's not great for playing Pix on curve, like turn 1 Pix into turn 2 something, but for getting a Pix later in the game, like it's actually going to survive that attack. That's super cool. That's great. And a good point that Help Pix, the spell that Lulu generates, can give barrier, so why doesn't Pix have barrier? Yeah. Uh, Twin Disciplines Reverted. The twins are equal once again and all is right with the world. We're expecting cards of this quality to be our bar for the eternal power level and excited to set it back where it belongs. Wow, that's a big deal. That's an old debuff that they put. And now it's back to 3 or 3. That's huge. Okay. Eminent Benefactor. 4 mana 3/3. It's now a 4 mana 4/3, so better stats. Last Breath, create a random epic. Play, manifest an epic from your regions. So that's just straight up better. It's on play instead of Last Breath. So you're able to do less like, I don't know, weird shenanigans of reviving it or something, or summoning multiple copies. But yeah, the benefactor now makes his donation before his will reading and is a lot more likely to get something you actually want. Yeah, just a solid big buff for the Eminent Benefactor. The Captive Yeti, 5 mana, 5/5. Used to be 6 mana, 5/5 Overwhelm that costs 3 less. Now it's a 5 mana, 5/5 that costs 4 less on Reputation, turning it into a 1 mana Yeti, which is the standard Yeti that you can find in Freljord, the one that's generated by all the different effects. Our Yeti is now a 1 cost 5/5, like it was always meant to be. Welcome home, Yeti. But it doesn't have Overwhelm anymore, at least not base. So, hard to say if that's a buff or not. But it's definitely more thematic, so I like that. Sanctum Conservator. I love this guy. If you played slain 13 units, kill all enemy followers, summon a copy. Play, kill a follower. If you've slain 13, kill all enemy followers, then summon a copy me. 13 slays is a lot, and it's frustrating when you have the conservative or aren't close to the goal. Now it will help your future ones hit that goal and be a bit more impactful. Yeah, it kills a follower, so it can kill an enemy follower on play, no matter what. That's way better. That's a really nice buff to it. Draven. He got his health back. Draven's back. It's Draven. Needs more A's instead of more N's. But I approve. That's great. Good job, Draven. You're back. Withering Whale, back to 4. Aggro is one of the easiest decks to build in the new Eternal format. Want to make sure the tools to combat it exist. So, Withering Whale, better able to try to put a tamper on anyone trying to do go wide aggro. Concurrent timelines, back to 1. We found the timeline where this card can return into all its glory. Eternal is a place where cool build-arounds like this deserve to have their chance. Nice. Poppy, we all know who the hero is, and Eternal request to find them gets to continue, and her hammer gets to bonk just a little bit harder. Nice buff for Poppy. Back to 3 again. Oh, that's so nice. Middenstoke Henchman. Acquiring your own set of henchmen is a key step in ruling the Undercity. Now it's a bit easier for you to live your fantasy of being a villain. There are 5. That's not a very impactful change, I don't think, but it's nice. Good for them. Wise Fry is no longer automatically vulnerable. It wasn't very wise of this guy to leave himself so vulnerable. He paid us off to make sure that wasn't the case anymore. One more stat, too. One more attack base. That's nice. That makes that actually kind of worth considering. Grand Plaza. Used to be +0/+1 in Challenger. Now it's back to +1/+1. After some refurbishment in the Eternal Lands, the plaza is back open for business. So a lot of reverts, it looks like. Captain Araka is now 6 mana for you to deal with landmarks. Eternal has a goal of slightly higher interaction than Standard. These were weak and underplayed cards that can now help fulfill that role. So, making the Captain actually come out not super late in the game if you need to deal with a landmark in Demacia. On guard, costing only 2, also very nice. Out of the way, costs 4. This card has always had a cool dream, but has never really gotten to live it. A cheaper cost should make that dream a bit sweeter. I like that. Iceborne Legacy. Do you hear it? The sound of fluffed. It's a Poro Stampede, or a Stampede of your favorite unit. I'm not here to judge. Okay, so making that a little bit easier to pull off, making this less of a pain to try to do. You could still only do it as early as turn 3, but you actually have 2 mana wiggle room instead of 1, which is a big deal. You can play a 2-drop and then skip turn 1 and play this on turn 3. That is much nicer. Escaped Abomination. Eternal Shadow Isles aggro gets a return to form with this one creeping out of the crypt back to a 4/3. Nice. It's not a 4/4 still, but that's still a nice return to form. Blessing of Targon goes down to 4 cost. It struggled as a buff region at times. Want to make sure that they had a great one that fits Eternal's power level. Blessing of Targon, just 4 mana for a permanent 3/3. Still not great. Granting health isn't the best, but it's better in Targon when you can, regenerate and heal so much. So I think that's a good change. Kinku Lifeblade. It's been a long time since the Lifeblade has shown its face, but in Eternal it's ready to hold all the best buffs around. Back to a 2/3. So a little bit more survivable. Can actually block. Card nerfs. Here we go. This is actually going to affect Standard. When I'm Summoner Strike, create a 0-cost Flare in hand. When you play 6 cards, Rally. That's on level 2 version. Create a 0-cost Flare in hand. Resets when you start a round with the attack token. Okay, so it's back to resetting again. Samira's ability not resetting after leveling up could be confusing, so we decided to make it consistent. Also, with our previous nerf to All Out, she was still quite powerful. You need to plan a little bit more carefully now to get and be a bit more dedicated to get those rallies. Okay, so now there's still like a timing element. It's not just like, oh, from now on. Okay, that's a nice change, I think. Yeah, I like that. Okay, flare change, the thing that's being generated. Either. Oh, it only gives Samira Challenger. Flare had a bit too much flexibility, and playing against the face-up challenger long after Samira was already gone could be frustrating. This should make Samira less of an obvious pairing for so many decks, while focusing on her impact. I think that's fine. It's definitely less flexible. And you can still always use it for damage, even if Samira dies. Tristina takes longer to level up. Oh no. Bandle Gunner's buff from the previous patch really brought the Bandle City squad together. Spell Shield did a bit too much to protect some of the prize fight combos we were seeing, though. If you want to fight for glory, you gotta put more risk into it. We're also preemptively taking some of the power away from Tristana to get this deck closer to where we want it. Okay, so Tristana takes longer to level up, and there's no more Spell Shield on Bandle Gunners. Oh no. That was the best part. That's what let you do like some janky combos. But prize fight was not really like, it was a bit too good to be called a janky combo, so I could see what they're going for there. And it can get down to like a 1-cost thing, so I think it doesn't need Spell Shield anymore. It needed Spell Shield back when it always costed 8. Powder Pandemonium no longer grants vulnerable. Now it's just. For having so much Pandemonium, this effect sure did give the player a lot of control in combat. Plunder aggro has been one of the best performing decks in Standard. Want to give it a light touch alongside the Samira changes. Looking to see how much impact these have. Okay. Yeah, that seems fine. It makes it definitely a lot harder to, like, guarantee a win with a Powder Pandemonium, so that's fine. Card adjustments. Reputation cards. Reputation cards will now reduce their cost by a certain amount rather than setting the cost to an exact amount. Reputation hasn't functioned in a satisfying way due to not working with many of the cost-reducing effects our game has, but it does now. Reputation alone in life isn't enough to get things for free, but now you can add whatever else you need to make it happen. So instead of reputation I cost 1, it's I cost 3 less. Oh, pick a spell in play. Aww. The previous Mimic design is stopping us from allowing reputation to cost reduce, as it could easily go infinite. Ah, I see. Okay, so that was something holding something else back. Because, yeah, being able to use Mimic to grab an enemy spell on the stack was cool and niche, but cool. Okay. The other I like the other one because of its extra flexibility, but I could see how it was limiting the card design. Momentous choice. Previous version of this card was a bit too much, as 2 spell cast for 1 mana. The 2 mana version isn't as momentous for Kayn and Varus. The new shape should have most of the power of the old and be an easy choice for equipment strategies. Give an ally +1 or -1. Equip the thing, you copy it. Now, I cost 1 less if you've equipped an ally this game, and it gives an ally +2 or. Okay, so it's always +2 or -2 for 2, but it'll cost less. So it's less spell cast, which does matter for drawing Varus. So it's still a nerf to Varus, but that's pretty nice for Kayn, and still makes it a good card. This is the first Eternal Rank season. Runeterra opens, Gauntlet schedule, new Daily Rumble stuff, the Pride bundle. Okay, some stuff we've already seen, but a new one, which is a thing with Nami. Nice. Okay, Unlimited Gauntlet month. Convergence. Nice. I actually am going to be uploading a playthrough of Convergence right after this, so make sure to like and subscribe and check out that one. Send that one a little like as well, because I played through the first chapter and that game is good. So yeah, keep an eye out for that on my channel and honestly pick it up yourself. Free icon and emote. Log in within the next week basically, and you'll get it. Updated skin. Updating an older version of the skin that we don't know about until tomorrow. Miscellaneous. Added a free build to the Friend Challenge game modes. Interesting. Added Champs Unlimited to Friend Challenge. Some free deck bundles. 7 free standard decks. Available in the store. Afterwards, they will replace the starter decks obtained during the game's tutorial section. Alright. Then a bunch of bug fixes. So no changes to Path of Champions. Fix an issue where the default Zoe level up could play instead of the corrupted Zoe version. Summon the Sun Disk without restoring it. Wriggle's Lantern. Powder Kegs. Okay, just some stuff. Okay, so this doesn't have the new cards. Let's see if they have a link to the new cards. Yeah, I don't see them. Card adjustments, etc., etc. Okay, let's go to game updates real quick. Here we go. Is this what I'm looking for? Well, it's something. Let's take a look. Senior game designer. Okay, one of the driving forces behind the move to add more subtypes. We're adding 4 animal subtypes: birds, cats, dogs, and reptiles. Change the card frame to allow it to display 2 subtypes on 1 unit. This might seem like it's coming out of nowhere, but we have good reasons for it. Biggest reason is that adding new subtypes gives us more card traits to reference with future cards and mechanics, opening up new decks and gameplay. Similar to the way that lore currently has dragon and elite decks, and spider decks, and things like that, laying the groundwork for potential archetypes with these subtypes. These kinds of decks built around cards with the same subtype create a straightforward deck building plan that's very approachable for new players, and added novel directions for experienced players to tap into as well. In addition to that, we're adding animal subtypes specifically because people really like animals. Our own Dan Felder posted on the lore subreddit saying he'd design a custom card for any player that provides a pic and description of their pet, and ended up doing more than 20 of them in less than a day. Okay, so people just like animals. Finally, changing the card frame is a future-proofing move. We introduced our first dual subtype unit 3 years ago, and again with the Mecha Yordles. In both of these cases, we had to do some pretty weird stuff to let people know that these units have 2 subtypes. I'll say more on that in a bit, but just for now, know that we can be far more comfortable creating dual subtype units when they don't have development costs or have to say, I am a dragon on them. Okay. Herding cats. It wasn't hard to get the team on board with adding a number of new subtypes. Design loves when we can set up new gameplay patterns to interact well with the existing collection. We looked through the collection and identified birds, cats, and reptiles as subtypes with enough units to make sense. A few days later, Riot Runeclaw walked over to my desk and gave an impassioned plea to add dogs as well. I don't actually remember the details of what she said, but I was pretty much sold instantly. Uh, that's about where it stopped being easy. After playtesting the changes for a bit, it became apparent that what did or didn't count as a bird, cat, etc. was subjective. There's nothing wrong with some subjectivity, but it can be a real hindrance when trying to align on certain decisions. There's also a pretty big issue for future content. How can design ask our art team for an illustration of a bird unit, but not be able to articulate to them what does and does not count as a bird? Using any of the existing pools of units, we created and aligned on rules for what the required disqualifying traits are for each of the new subtypes. They have specific rules, but in general, they all disqualify any unit with a humanoid form, like a Fastaya or a demon or other anthropomorphic animal, with exceptions for multiple subtypes. This may seem strict, but it gives our art team a lot more flexibility when illustrating units without subtypes. We don't want to lock away their creativity. Yes, that makes sense. You don't want to say, okay, you can't make any Vastaya that look like birds anymore. Subtypes must have a subtyped character is the subject of the card's name and must be an organic creature. So no robot cats. The name directly contradicts the subtype. Can't have that. Can't have distinct existing species in Runeterra that isn't a subtype, such as a wump. Any of the below examples, counter examples. Basilisk Rider. The basilisk isn't the subject of the card, the rider is. Petrocyte Broadwing. It is inorganic, so it's not a bird. The Starlit Seer. The owl isn't the card subject, the seer is. Makes sense. Alright, birds. Must have wings. Must have a mostly avian head. Must have feathers or implied feathers. Can't have humanoid limbs, humanoid proportions, or significant non-bird features, such as like a bunch of legs. Omenhawk, Harbinger of the Thralls, Stygian Onlooker, Anivia, those are all birds. Blood-Cursed Harpy, 2 human. Spirit of Wuju, no wings. Oh, okay. Dancing Droplet, no feathers, inorganic. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. It's not a bird. Cat, 4+ legs, a tail, a mostly feline head, fur or implied fur. No humanoid limbs, no bipedal form, no significant non-cat features. Wildclaw Alpha is a cat. Crimson Bloodletter, cat. Submersible is a cat because the cat is the one driving it, I guess. Hungry Owl Cat. It is as much an owl as a cat. It is not. Honestly, I think the Hungry Owl Cat should be a catbird, but, you know, whatever. Clump of Wumps is a distinct species. It is not a cat, it's a wump. Dog. 4+ legs, a tail, canine head. Does not need to have fur. Interesting. Humanoid limbs, bipedal form, significant non-dog features. Obedient Drakehound, Puffcat Pup, Rhymefang Wolf, those are all dogs. Rampaging Bakai is a mostly humanoid, that's the hyena. Cynon Thousand-Tailed is more of a fox, it's a distinct species. Chip, it's a rock, it's an elemental, it's not a dog. No canine head, sure. Reptile, scales or implied scales. Tail, mostly reptilian head. That's gonna be humanoid limb. Dragon features, so it can't be a dragon to be a reptile. Bitsy lizard, wily newtfish, scaled snapper. Gigagromp is an amphibian, but the newtfish is a reptile. Shellshocker, humanoid, yeah. Stalking broodmother is a dragon. Deadbloom wanderer, inorganic. Another consequence of this change was finding units we felt deserved both their current subtype and the new one. Basically, we knew people would riot in the streets if Yumi wasn't a cat, but our existing dual subtype solutions were less than ideal. We either have to make a new custom subtype called FeyCat or add I am a cat. Solutions are a bit odd aesthetically, but they also have real costs if we were to start using them more frequently. Each new custom dual type combo would require new translations, and adding I am a subtype makes the card text longer. Uh, we spun up a problem solving group with representatives from game design, UX design, engineering, tech art, etc. After investigation, we settled on a fairly simple one line per subtype approach with a max of 2. This didn't require a list separating text character and manually covered the illustration while satisfying the most important design goal. Eagle-eyed players may notice a slight subtype bar change a few patches ago to allow it to resize easily for the second line. Azir, Ascended. Ascended Bird. Yep. We also revisited our Mecha Yordle implementation to clean up all the technical behind-the-scenes awkwardness. Mecha Yordles are now both Mecha and Yordle, and should have minimal gameplay ramifications, and means Mecha is now its own subtype. Mecha Dragons when? Can of Worms. There are some pretty interesting calls made during this process I'd like to highlight. I think they offer a look into just how absurd game development can be sometime. It's possible for a disease decision to change. Nasus is a dog. While the strict set of animal subtype rules is important to keeping the team aligned, there are times where it makes sense to break them. Narrative exceptions and dual subtype exceptions. A good example is the messenger. If you asked most people what they were looking at, they would say a dog. But if you went by the rules, this good boy wouldn't count because he is a universe-sized ethereal star being, which is unfortunately not organic. In many cases, it's impossible for a unit to meet the strict criteria of 2 subtypes at once, so the rules are bent when we want them to have both. That leads us back to the question, is Nasus really a dog? Not strictly speaking, no. Is Nasus an ascended with the aspects of a hound? Absolutely yes. We could have left the animal subtypes off the ascendeds entirely, but the animal aspects are part of their character. See Nasus Who Let the Dogs Out joke in League. And there's value in giving them that little additional gameplay hook. I can't wait to see jank Azir bird decks. As for narrative exceptions, it allows us to make occasional lore references to stoke player curiosity and delight. Why the heck is Professor Von Yip a cat? That's because the cat is the professor, not the guy that it shows in the picture. Why isn't FeyCat on one line? Players who play in English might have raised an eyebrow, these mere 6 letters being separate lines. I touched on this a little above. Easier to look at FeyCat and say, yes, that can fit on one line in English, and probably in most of the other languages. It's harder to look at Ascended Reptile and say the same. Yeah, I mean, that all makes sense. How is a card with lizard in its name not a reptile? This is one of the problems when dealing with hundreds of existing cards that were designed with no knowledge of the brand new rules you've created. Lounging Lizard is probably the most unfortunate of these instances, but he's clearly a humanoid with his 2-legged stance and fancy clothes. We discussed changing his name, but in the end decided it was acceptable for older cards to have the occasional quirk. Yeah, that's fine. Rapid Fire. Dragons are not reptiles. They're a separate thing. No frogs. It's reptile, not herptile. Wolves are dogs. Effectively, yes, enough for our purposes. Okay. A lot of what we talked about is how we applied our rules to existing cards, but the big reason we did this was for future potential. We see these subtypes growing over time with build-around cards and novel gameplay patterns that turn them into their own fully functional decks. Here's what we're thinking at the moment for the regions and playstyles that makes sense for each type of animal. Birds are going to be Ionia and Demacia. Cats, Piltover and Zon and Shurima. Are there a bunch of cats in Shurima? I guess there will be. Probably Nidalee. Dogs are Freljord because of wolves and Demacia. Demacia. I guess there's a couple. Reptiles, Noxus, and Bilgewater. Right now, birds have the closest to definitional playstyle as fragile units that are good at picking fights. Yeah, because of all the challengers. Cats are less well defined, but are generally going to feel tricky, evasive, death-defying, and clever. Yeah, just because of all the Von Yip stuff. Dogs are even looser, but they have the beginnings of an identity around being helpful to other allies that feels right. We're still exploring the right identity for reptiles. None of this is set in stone, and you'll likely see many examples of these subtypes falling outside the main regions, as we don't want to be restrictive. But it's what they're currently looking at. We're excited to see what you do with these critters, and now as they develop over time. That's all I have to say. Goodbye. Here is a picture of his dog. Okay. All right then. So that's kind of why they're adding these new subtypes. A bunch of animal subtypes. It's a little bit of future proofing. And it looks like the patch notes here do not have the new cards. But luckily, I can get a hold of those new cards without too much issue. Let's go ahead and just grab them real quick. We'll just have to get them off of Twitter, and we'll take a look. All right. Scrolling. Here we go. All right. So new stuff. We have 10 new cards, I believe. Here we go. Okay, let's go ahead and just slide this over to got it. Okay. Apologize for that. Here we go. So, Captain Indari, when I'm summoned, I improvise. Plunder, forge other allies. 6 mana in Noxus. It's a weapon master, so you can pair it with Jax. All in all, seems pretty good. You're able to summon that in. It generates a weapon for you. The plunder seems like it could be kind of hard to pull off if you're doing a weapon master deck, but if you're willing to include the other things that came with Samira that could just trigger plunder on summon, then you might be able to pull something off here. And Noxus has okay weapons, so you might be able to build some kind of weapon-themed Samira deck, especially because weapons tend to be pretty cheap. They come back to your hand, so Samira definitely doesn't mind having cards like that that you can just kind of play multiple times to try to level up and get those rallies. Next up, Beguiling Cobra, our first reptile. 7 mana in Ionia. Each round, the first time you summon another follower, summon an exact copy of it. If your board is full, grant its stats and keywords to me instead. Definitely could pull off some interesting jank. It's like an Ionia version of Mirror Mage, but without the spells, which is definitely interesting that Ionia doesn't get the spell part. But for going wide, for triggering extra summon effects, it's not even an ephemeral copy. It's just 2 copies for everything you play, at least for the first thing. Interesting. We'll have to see. 7 mana is definitely a big turn off, but it's not like, you know, Ringblade Lookout can lower the cost and potentially get this out much sooner. Perfidious Promoter. When you refill mana, create a fleeting random follower in hand that you can exactly afford. This card is really good. 4 mana 4/4 is a stat line that you definitely like, and refilling mana is something that you can do with for sure with coins, obviously, but you can also do it with a tune. So if you play something with a tune, as long as you still have mana left, you'll get a free unit to also play, and that allows you to play a much more spell-heavy deck, but still have units to just kind of throw out there. Very interesting. I really like it. There's also synergies you can do with this, with Scion, and discard strategies. Lady of Blood. So yeah, overall, I really like it. Very cool. I'm definitely going to build around this. And then we have the innovative Blacksmith. When I am summoned, I improvised. Each round, the first time you forge or equip, heal your Nexus 1. Okay, so Freljord gets some healing back again. Very small amounts over time, but as long as you're forging, like if you have the landmark, Orn's Forge, yeah, that's just gonna be steadily healing. It's as good. I mean, it requires more work than the fledgling Stellacorn, the new one, but you're putting in that you want to put in that work. You're going to put it in a deck where you want to put in that work. It is a weapon master, so another thing to just kind of throw in there with Jax or with Ornn. I really like it. That's nice. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next couple. There we go. Sacrificial Scholar is 2 mana, 1/2 faded. Last breath, create in hand copies of the first 3 spells you played on me. Amazing. That's a really good card. Just getting back spells. Card advantage is just really solid in general. 2 mana for a 1/2 that gets bigger because of faded. It's able to scale, and you want to put buffs on it because you're not really losing those buffs. Even just Pale Cascade, drawing you a card and then getting back card draw, that's going to be really good for faded decks, for Targon decks, like decks that care about buffs. If you're trying to put something together with Taric, yeah, really love this guy. That's going to be so good for if you're trying to put something together with Taric and Eternal. Royal Shimmerwing, here's our first bird. Birds have +1/+0 in quick attack. That is mostly going to be useful for all of the challenger birds. So if you're doing Quinn with Ionia or something like that. I don't think that buff is going to be that impactful on Azir, but maybe. Azir likes to attack, especially once he's leveled up. So not trading when he does so seems like that could be pretty useful. 5 mana though. Pretty expensive. Grave Companion. There's a dog. Each round, the first time another ally dies, draw 1. Okay. Would you put this? I think you would probably put this in your playful tricks, not playful trickster, but the various Death Matters types decks, the ping ones, with the Phantom Prankster decks. You could curve this in pretty well, I think, and then just start playing sacrificial, ephemeral type things and not actually run out of cards, even if you don't have Glimpse Beyond. So I think that could find a home. It's not gonna be a staple in every Shadow Isles deck, I don't think. An Altar to Unity. 4 mana, when I'm summoned, draw a unit. When you summon an ally, grow its stats equal to its cost. So growing is not granting, so those stats are going to go away after a turn. But that can be a turn of anything that's undercosted that comes out and has less stats than it should because of the effects or keywords is going to come out and be like a vanilla Demacia unit. It's pretty interesting. It turns everything into kind of vanilla Demacia units at the very least, but they still get to retain what makes them good. That can be pretty strong, I think, with elusives that all tend to be undercosted. Yeah, pretty strong, I think. I like that one. Next up, the last three we have. Pack Attack. It is start a free attack with an exact ephemeral copy of each cat ally. So thinking about P and Z cats, most of those have on summon effects or are elusive. So something like this is pretty solid. Paying 6 mana for it is kind of rough. Kind of rough. But for something that you can just main deck compared to uh, not parallel convergence, I don't think. Yeah, parallel convergence from Echo's cards. This is something you can just main deck and don't have to like try to find. So as long as you're building kind of a cat deck, this could be good. Downside, of course, is that it doesn't generate a cat or do anything with cats on its own. So it's definitely, I think, the weakest card that we've seen here until we actually see Nidalee come out. Because Nidalee is probably going to be a cat and care about cats and have a bunch of cat stuff. In Shurima. So until then, until Nidalee comes out, this card is not going to be that good. Blowback for P and Z. Deal 1 to an enemy and the enemy nexus. Discard up to 2 to increase the damage by 1 for each card discarded. Interesting. So this is 4 mana, discard 2 to do 3 damage to a unit and the enemy nexus. That is pretty good. Obviously, you can tell by who's holding this exploding gun that this is something Jinx is going to want. I'm not sure if anything other than discard type decks is going to care about this, though. I guess potentially just a pure kind of aggro thing might find a use for it. But if you only care about hitting the enemy nexus, you'd rather just run Get Excited instead of Blowback. But interesting. Interesting for Jinx, at the very least. And then Condense. This is a scary card. 2 mana to pick a follower. Doesn't have to be yours, it could be either side. You get a 1-cost copy of it in hand and set its stats to 1/1. This is way better than Iterative Improvement, because if you only care about summon effects, Last Breath effects, or any of those kind of things, Condense is going to be a way cheaper way to do it. Yeah, condensing a Rekindler, condensing Descent Ada. There is... Yeah, you could definitely do a condense with Descent Ada. Oof. Yeah, there's going to be some very scary things you can do with this. I think a big one, just right off the bat, is putting it in Vigar. I think is going to be pretty good. But I think you're going to find this card a lot. But there we go. Those are the new cards, the new patch. Lots of things to look forward to, a big shakeup. And we are heading on our way, I believe next month should be the... Yeah, next month will be the new cards. And we'll be getting Nidalee. Is there anyone else I think we'll be getting based on that? We could be getting Nidalee and Nico, and then Nico be a Runeterra champ, possibly. We could be getting Scarl and Kled because of lizards in Noxus is possible, but I think not the most likely. If we want birds in Ionia, although they say that's, Vestaya don't really count, This could be the time to put in Zaya and Rakan, which could be interesting. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see what we're looking at. It might be the problem with the Zaya and Rakan is we just had set. So actually, it might not. It probably won't be them, unfortunately. Okay. We could get, I suppose, Warwick because of dogs, but I also think that's not the most likely. But we'll have to wait and see. Just 1 month, less than a month for us to actually start getting spoiler cards and everything. But that should be it for this video. Make sure to check out my Convergence gameplay playthrough, which should be going up right after this. And I hope you guys have a good one. You can check me out on Twitch if you want to see me actually play Legends of Runeterra as well. I play that every single day, going through the dailies. Just having fun. But other than that, feel free to leave a like and a subscribe, and put in the comments down below what champions you think we'll be seeing. Alright, you guys have a good one.